Sweet.
It's gonna mess me up.
God, what episode?
Anyone care
Episode
about-
8. Episode 8. Welcome
Right?
everyone
Eight
to
is great. Grade 8.
episode 8 of Before the Tones Drop podcast. It's good to be back. I feel like we haven't been podcasting in a while.
Well, you haven't. The
Yeah.
rest of us have been
The
working.
rest of us have been around.
You
I've been on
take
vacation.
like every week. So.
Which I will say, yeah, and I will say this is a little bit later in the month than what we normally do, so it may be a little bit extra.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
some of us have still been showing up.
And you were nice enough to come in on a Saturday that you're off. So
Right.
we appreciate that, man. That's
Yeah.
an ask.
Taking the time on the holiday weekend here, but we're excited to be here. We're shifting gears over across the hall at headquarters to the Sioux City Police Department. Sergeant Jeremy McClure, correct? That's his
Lieutenant
rank?
now.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Gosh, dang.
I missed that. I didn't know
Nice.
that. Is
Congratulations.
that a recent promotion?
Yeah, back in October.
Good for you.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations. You are our first law enforcement guest, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And welcome to the show today. We're going to, I don't even really know where to start with law enforcement because I don't know much about it, and that's why you're here today to talk about. But you want to start at the beginning, kind of a little bit about where you grew up, where you're from, your relationship to Sioux City before you worked here?
Yep. I was born in Sioux City, lived here until I was about 9, and then I moved to Cherokee, Iowa with my mom, and ultimately graduated from Cherokee Washington High School. And big thing I wanted was just out of Cherokee, so I joined the Marine Corps because they promised me, yeah, we'll get you out of Cherokee.
That's usually a pretty good
Yep.
guarantee.
They lived up to the promise, and I also knew I wasn't ready for college. I was kind of a rowdy kid, and I wasn't going to be able to study. I knew I was going to party my way right out of college. So Marine Corps helped me find the, I guess, motivation to want to go to college after doing the Marine Corps stuff. It's like, yeah, this is fun blowing stuff up and everything, but I think I want to get out and do something else. So since all my family lived in the area here, I decided to come back and just rolled the dice with Sioux City PD. And part of the reason I actually ended up with them was, one, I wanted to be here, and two, they're the only ones that would waive college for military at the time. So,
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
so that's how I ultimately ended up with them 23 years ago.
Wow.
And it's been a great career so far, and I'm looking forward to the next 7 to 10 years, see where else we go with it.
When you first went to the Marine Corps, what was your job in the Marines?
Well, I wanted to be an MP at the time because I thought, I knew I was kind of leaning towards going into law enforcement, so I thought I'll be an MP, like a lot of MPs do. But I was talked out of it to do security forces.
Okay.
With the promise that it's just like being an MP. No, it's like being an infantryman on guard duty is what it's like. And
Yeah.
so, but it was a good experience. I got to guard nukes, and I was on the recapture tactics team and learned the CQB stuff. So I knew I was kind of heading in the right direction. I appreciated my time in the infantry. I didn't, although I was a rifleman, I never fulfilled an actual rifleman role because I did the couple years of security forces. Then I went to the fleet because I could type. They stuck me in the company office, and admittedly I hated it, so I turned in kind of a D-bag, and then they kicked me out into a mortar platoon, and I liked humping all that gear and dropping bombs on people's heads. I thought that was pretty dope.
Awesome.
So,
That was so I was 4 years in the Marine Corps.
Yep, 4 years in the
one
Marine
active
Corps.
duty enlistment.
And I did one Westpac deployment. Is all I did. This was in '98 when initially we thought we were going to go to war with Iraq.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we spent a good chunk of our time in the Gulf, just sitting off the coast of Kuwait and everything, just waiting for him to, let us off the leash. And at that point, we're so pissed off that we're ready to go and just level the whole country because
Right.
you sit on ship for so long with 500 other dudes, and all you get to do is work out, clean weapons. You're just ready to get off the ship and
Yeah,
do
it's
something.
one big party cruise ship, right?
Oh, yeah.
Navy?
Testosterone
Such-
at peak levels.
Such a great party.
That's awesome. So then, what year was that you got out of the Marine Corps and came back?
I got out in June of '99, and so
Okay.
I had to. I got on the list of CCPD right away, but the way we do things is, well, I think you guys do it as well, but you have to test, pass the interview, the written test, physical test, pass the interview, get on a list, and then they've got that list for at least a year, and then they hire off that list. So it was 9 months before I ended up getting hired, and it was kind of a long wait, but I definitely confirmed that I did not want to work for a private corporation at that time. So I was working for a local manufacturer, and they were very profit driven, and it was a culture shock coming from the military to a private company where they're profit driven, and honestly you could tell they didn't care about their people. It's like they want the bottom line.
Sure.
It's like they talk a game and feign it a bit, but ultimately you were there to turn out a product, and And so I realized that that's not the culture I want to be in. I kind of miss that military mindset, or the camaraderie, the esprit de corps, and
Absolutely.
being part of something that isn't about the bottom line. It's about doing something more important than that. So it definitely reinforced that, yeah, this is where I want to be, the direction I want to go.
Perfect. And so you get hired in the police department. Gotta be obviously pretty excited when that came down. Was that?
Yeah, it was a different deal. I mean, you go to the academy and go through all the training, and our FTO process. So the academy's about 13 weeks long, or 12 to 14 weeks long. They've kind of shifted a little bit, and then we go into a 17-week field training process. And I was about 9 weeks into the field training process, and then I tore my ACL chasing some drunk guy down an alley. And so, right away you start having these thoughts like, this is it, my career's over already. I'm 9 months into it, now what am I going to do? But now, the organization's been great. They take care of us. They took care of me, made sure I had what I needed, and let me heal, and came back, got set back a couple of weeks, but then finished it all out, and, and just kept plugging along. So, but like the scariest day, though, your career is that first day you drive out on your own. You don't have somebody looking over your shoulder, nitpicking every little thing, and then you're out there making your own decisions, doing your own calls, and doing what you want to do.
Doing some cowboy stuff,
right? And this is what and I'm just thinking about the podcast. Coming in today, I was trying to compare and contrast a little bit with the fire department, because I've always admired how you guys operate. You show up to the call, and everybody knows their job. It's just bam, bam, it's straight up teamwork. You got your incident command all set up, and I've always admired that. And comparatively, like the police department, yeah, we work as a team, but 75-80% of our time is autonomous. We're out there on our own, just doing stuff. And so we get kind of put behind the power curve sometimes when we show up to calls, because we don't have that necessary that rigid command structure necessarily, or we have to sort out what our jobs are when we get to that scene and kind of fill things out. So there's a little bit different leadership challenge in training those younger officers, and how we deal with situations, and just give them the basics so that when we come together, we can congeal as a team and figure things out. So I kind of digressed and got off track here. I know we're progressing,
this is perfect.
But those have been some of the lessons I've learned over the years, and just try to take some of the lessons that you guys had in your leadership and your command structure and everything, and how do we bring that in and just have some semblance of an idea. And not that we're in complete chaos, we have command structure and everything. It's just it's a little different beast, because each of our situations are a little bit different. You may be going in fighting a fire, and I have to assume that there's some progression to it, or it's like, hey, we set this up, and I just like, I watch you guys work, and it's like I've noticed some patterns and stuff, but a lot of times we show up, we're like, oh, okay, you need to be over here, and we got to get something over here, and we got to come up with a plan on the fly, because situations are a little bit different, for each thing that we encounter.
Well, it's like when we come in and we know we're all responding from our stations. It is easy, because what the first in engine company's doing, the second in engine, third in engine, first truck, second truck. I mean, that you guys, if you could be responding from who knows where, so it's not like you could be like, maybe you say first officer, second officer, third, but you don't know where everybody's responding from and stuff. So it would make it like you guys are all just getting there. And it's like, okay, now what? And it kind of makes sense where, for us, at least on our side, it is defined. It is something easier for us to perform that way. And it's kind of cool that you do notice that, that we don't necessarily, because we're in it, so we don't necessarily know it, but it is from the outside looking in. If you watch a fire ground, it's like clockwork. It's a machine that just everybody kind of has those roles. So, so it's kind of cool that you do.
You guys are
like
that, like an orchestra. It's like everybody knows their part. They have their bits and everything. We're like jazz musicians out here, just riffing, just like,
just go.
I'm gonna throw in a solo right here. It's like, all right.
It's a good reference.
No, you got me thinking, like, when we see you guys solo out there, it's like you're just trying to do your thing, but when you get a group of you together, it's like you kind of fall into that, though. All of you kind of orchestrate yourselves accordingly, depending on the situation. So it is kind of like us in that aspect, where you get a group of you together, you all start doing your thing, and you go off each other, and you know what you're supposed to do. So from our end, that's what it looks like to us too when we see you guys. I feel, but
and what's nice is when we can get a little time for a team that can gel. Because I mean, we have our teams, they cover each side of the town, and then as they start working together, get a little more consistency. They get a feel for each other, and they start developing little roles and know how to pick up each other's cues and stuff. And so,
I'm sure the budget wouldn't love it, but I've always disappointed that you guys don't get to work in partners. Because I think that'd be the best part about being
was it
law
that way
enforcement
back in the day in
was
Sioux
working
City?
them.
I'm not sure, if there was partners. Sometimes we get to go out, and honestly, what's funny is you get used to working by yourself. That sometimes when you have somebody with you, you're just like, I just want to do my own thing right now.
Yeah.
So you kind of end up developing that independence. But and these are things we've explored because we ultimately don't have the resources. For a city our size, we should have a department that's upwards of 180 officers, and right now we got 131 officers. So we have to prioritize calls. We have to kind of allocate our resources effectively, and I think we've become masters at that to an extent where we can still cover the calls and everything, but admittedly, sometimes some minor things have to wait a little bit longer than we'd like them to. It's just,
Of course.
emergencies are going to take precedence over a past sense theft or a minor car accident. So, but eventually an officer is going to show up and take your call and provide that service here. So, it's just.
We do talk about like that call volume. You say, I know like our call volumes consistently going up as far as every year we're setting a new record for us. But I heard one time like your call volume, what you guys deal with on a daily, even on a daily basis or per shift, it's incredible the amount of like. Not necessarily. I mean, we're running EMS calls or fire calls, but just interactions that you have with individuals. It's still, it's still contact. It's still some paperwork. That's still some stuff. But it's a huge. But it's I don't think people in town realize how busy you guys are. Because like how many guys do you run? Like what's a shift look like for you guys as far as like numbers or hours and stuff? I guess I'm not even 100% sure. All I know is sometimes like when we're calling for, hey, we need an officer, to like, well, they're at shift change, and like they'll get one to you as soon as you can.
Right.
So,
Yep, and I run the afternoon shift, so that 2:30 to 10:30 shift, and typically I have about 11 to 12 officers plus some supervisors out for the whole city, and so we stay pretty busy, typically running call to call to call, and like I said, we just got to prioritize things and kind of spread things out. Now, I would love to be able to send 2 officers to a car, in a car in some areas of town, because typically they go to more, a little more dangerous calls or whatever, and so it'd just be easier to just have 2 officers together in time. But if I got 2 cars, then I can spread people out and, have a little better response to different things. So, we get busy, and definitely in the 23 years that I've been on, I noticed it felt like more and more stuff kind of got pushed onto us, especially with mental health issues and the homelessness, and actually started once I got on the PD. I got my bachelor's in psychology, and then I started working on a master's in social work. Because initially I thought maybe I'll leave law enforcement and go be a counselor, and then I realized how much counselors make and what they actually do. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And so, but it at least opened my eyes to how much social work kind of stuff gets pushed onto law enforcement, and it still does. And the courts have kind of changed the way we can do certain things, and some of the things that we can affect and can't affect, and just how we approach situations. So, like when I was younger, I'd try to spend more time on those domestic calls, maybe counseling people or whatever, and trying to sort out the problem. And now that I realize what counseling is actually about, I'm not here to solve a problem that took you 5 years, that was 5 years in the making that brought you here. I can't fix that. I just need to fix the problem that's going on right now tonight. So just kind of helping them out and the younger officers out and figure that stuff out. But it's definitely kind of, I just saw more stuff get pushed on us, and especially, and a lot of people complain about it all the time, like the homelessness and the panhandling and everything else, and it's not a law enforcement problem to be fixed. So there's just limited things we can do with that.
But we're the ones in the streets that have to deal with it, and have to try and be counselors for those people, because we're the last resort, basically, before it goes a certain way.
And what's funny is, it is like, I'm sure you guys have seen it too, is like you start to know some of our more frequent flyers and kind of develop relation with them. Like we had one guy that for a while there, he just dropped off the radar, and we couldn't figure out where he was, and then we finally found him, and he turns out I think he got hurt and ended up in one of the nursing homes. You know, some of our officers went and visited him and checked in on him and
jeez.
everything, you know, and
Cool.
and stuff. So, I mean, you end up developing these little relationships with some of these guys. You know, they're all right dudes and everything. They're just, they got a problem.
Different way
Yeah.
of life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
their
different way of
issues.
life.
What do you guys like right now? Training, you know, you talk about. I know the mental health aspect. I
Yes.
would agree with you and stuff with some of the homeless things and some of the things that I think we're seeing a lot more of. You know, at least in the last couple of years, especially. I noticed I've seen an uptick for overdoses and more mental health issues and things that you know on our side. What I guess trending wise, like what over the last either few years or your career and stuff. I mean, kind of what's the call type that you're seeing more of now that you're kind of sitting there going, wow, you know, that's really, you know, it's a thing now. You know,
It maybe it's just some more sensitive to it now, but more the things that aren't our problem. You know, people calling in like my 11-year-old's out of control, and it's like I'm not a parent.
Yeah.
You know, but then we get a lot of the mental health issues too, where someone's not acting right or they're having an extreme mental health crisis, and you know, and this has been the big sea changes. Like someone's having a severe mental health crisis, or they're having a suicidal episode or something like that. You know, and people want us to show up, but you know, we figured it out. It's like, you know, we're getting sued and everything else because you know we show up and we do what cops do. You know, we restrain and haul somebody up to the hospital.
Everyone safe.
Yep, and the courts have kind of turned a bit on us, and ultimately it's like it's not in the governmental interest a lot of times to be the solution to this problem. You know, if somebody's in their own house and they're suicidal, there's not a lot I'm gonna be able to do about it, and you know, it pains me to do it, especially some of the history I have. It's like there's nothing it's like I can offer you the help. If you don't want it, then I'm gonna walk away because I'm not gonna risk my career. I'm not gonna risk getting sued or going to prison because someone was suicidal, and then they force me to take some sort of action against them that they get hurt or I get hurt, and it was all for naught, you know.
Sure.
But so that's probably been the biggest thing I've noticed a change in, is just how we approach the suicidal issues and the behavioral issues, mental health issues that are getting thrust on us that aren't ultimately our job, and how we kind of push back, or we've had to push back a little bit, and just to protect ourselves. So
It's just like tiptoeing around everything anymore. It seems like even on our end, it's like we have to do so many things to hypothetically prepare for maybe someone deciding that they would want to sue us for some reason. Now it's like, all right, are we giving people the care they need now? Are we doing our jobs to the best ability, or are we just trying to protect ourselves from some sort of litigation or something?
Yep, and it's always trying to find that balance.
Fine
And
line. Yeah.
so
Yeah, you imagine, especially on law enforcement, the liability has never been higher, especially after probably the last 3 to 5 years, just with a lot of recent events in the world. And
you can say
definitely, law enforcement has definitely the view on law enforcement has changed.
Oh yeah,
There's a
20
last few years.
2020 was a sea change for law enforcement, because the first 20 years I spent, I don't think, I mean, you saw it slowly building, but just the pushback against law enforcement slowly building. But then 2020 hit with COVID and the George Floyd killing and everything, and it just it definitely changed things. So it's a whole different career. Not completely different, but I mean, there's a lot of differences here and stuff. But what I try to remind people, especially here in Sioux City, is we put a lot of work in ahead of time, because a lot of things that people were demanding coming out of the protests and stuff, I'm like, we're already doing that. It's like
It's done here already.
We're neck deep in community policing. We try to think outside the box. We try to build relationships, and we've built a lot of great relationships over the years, and that definitely helped us through that situation. Yes. And then just also how we approach problems. So like during the protests, we went out and engaged with protest leaders, and
Absolutely.
Essentially partnered with them and worked with them, and because of those relationships, we've got some things out of that we're taking years, like body cameras. We're trying to get body cameras, and there's a little back and forth and whichever, but ultimately because of one of those protesters, that we built a partnership with, we got those body cameras, and I love them. I'm glad we've got them, and I wish we could have had them sooner. So
yeah, it's just like it sucks that people blanket policy law enforcement, EMS, or fire based on one event that happens somewhere far away from us, but because we are all the same badge, kind of.
Right.
we all get blanketed the same way. It's like, no, we've been doing like unity in the community events way before that. You know, we've been doing outreach, we've been doing that training already, you know, to prepare for that kind of thing. And it just sucks that it gets blanket policy.
Yeah, I think outside, you know, individuals or some, you know, for the most part, I think even Sioux City PD, you know, everybody likes to hate on the cops and stuff, but I think in Sioux City, you guys have a pretty positive, you know, relationship with the citizens and stuff, and for the most part, everybody likes Sioux City cops. You know, you guys do a good job. There's not a whole lot of you guys that, you know, even the interactions that when we see with people, even with your frequent flyers and stuff, it's not a whole lot of, you know, get away from me. I hate you know, I hate you guys or whatever. You really don't see that. You know, what you see on TV sometimes that gets, whether it gets clipped out or it's nationwide or whatever. You know, for here, I think you guys have a good relationship with everybody.
That's
you
all
know,
you see.
right?
You don't see
but I mean, the
good
citizens here, I think,
interactions.
appreciate, you know, our police department and stuff, and you guys do. You guys treat people fairly. You're nice. You're not a bunch of, you know, mean cops or anything. You know, I mean,
We're all type A's, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's just
And that's, you know, in just thinking about some things we were going to talk about too, and that was like probably one of the biggest challenges in my law enforcement career is figuring out how to interact with people and, you know, and not be a complete a-hole or something like that, you know. But on the other hand, you know, it's still a part you got to play, you know, because a lot of times, like my family, you know, they know me one way. I'm very jovial, laugh and joke, have a good time, just real relaxed. Like when I'm off, I'm not dealing with problems. I'm not, you know, it's like I just want to relax.
Yeah.
And then when they see me work, they're like, "You're like a completely different person." And I was like, "Yeah, you know, I got a part to play." And you know, like when I first started, what shocked me was how many times you get lied to. And it's just like, oh my God, I got lied to. This guy lied to me. And it's like, you know, my training officer's like, "Yeah, they're gonna do that," you know. And so, but the other thing is there's a persona you have to have, or you know, just the bearing that you have to come into certain calls with, because it's easier to control a situation kind of coming in with a, you know, very professional, firm, no nonsense bearing than it is to come in kind of laid back and relax, because a lot of times people view your kindness as weakness or whatever, you know. And but on the other hand, you know, it's like when you're a young officer, you kind of take it to an extreme, and then as you go on, you can kind of read people a little quicker and everything, and you can kind of gauge your interactions with people. And so, like one of my officers, when she was newer, she got mad at me. She's like, you know, we're coming in, we're arguing with this guy, it's real tense, and then you just come in with your hands in your pocket, "Hey, it's all right, it's cool, man, it's all right." And it's like, yeah, it's because I got a different role now, but I also know how to read the room and get people to kind
that's
of
that
interact with
experience
us.
level showing through there.
Right. So, but it's just getting those younger officers to also understand, like, you know, you got to gauge it. You also got to pull it back sometimes. Yes, you got to maintain that officer's safety and that bearing, but you also got to, you know, still realize you're dealing with people, and you got to be a person too. And people
that
respect
command
so.
presence, it's like with you, and think if you were on the other side, you know, what do you want coming in at you?
Right.
You know, or even us, like to even think about it, us on an EMS call, especially it's something a tense situation, or somebody, you know, you got other family members, you know, Shipper, myself, you know, Donnie, some of these guys that we're taller, we're bigger, we're a bigger presence as soon as we walk in.
You get
so,
picked out in the room,
right?
if
And
a
you get
guy's
so
angry,
that is either
that's the
because
guy
that
I
could
wanna-
be right, because that could be two different things. That could be people, if you come in and you're getting in somebody's faces, you're just big there. That can feel very intimidating. Somebody just, or on the flip side, that can also be a calm, because you are a bigger presence and people latch onto that and feel that. So you like you said, reading the room and coming in. But for an officer, you know, you got some guy that's, you know, whether they're younger and stuff, and you're all, you know, in all that gear and stuff, and they're in your face and just get, I mean, you're gonna get defensive, you're gonna shut down or whatever, versus somebody comes in and they just want to talk. That seems to, you know, even on tense EMS calls and stuff, we come in and you could just use a calmer voice and just talk to somebody, and whether they're feeding you back a line of bullshit or not, at least the situation or the room is calm, versus coming in and trying to yell or force somebody to do something. Then we know that the tension builds and everything, and then all of a sudden then we have to call the officer, and the officer comes in, and then you're getting to the point of restraining somebody, and things just, you know, it's that quicksand in a hurry. Versus, you know, I think, you know, as a whole, we all have to kind of read that room and understand even what we look like physically, not just what we're saying to people. That, you know, think about it. If you were on the other side of it, you know, what's your interpretation of what's happening?
Yeah, and that's something I also try to remind my younger officers too. Is like, just handle these calls like you would want somebody handling the call with your family. You know, if this is your family that was dealing with it, it's like you can be firm, you can be hurt, or whatever. But just be professional and just,
Correct.
You'll be right along the lines here.
So in terms of Sioux City PD structure, what is the foundation for success in terms of training new officers to have that professionalism and keep Sioux City PD's brand from turning into something that maybe the public eye wouldn't want to see?
With the training, hands down, the key to it is the FTOs, the field training officers. The officers that we select to work with the newer officers set that example, and they reinforce those expectations and build into them that culture that we want them to have. So hands down, that's the key to our success. We're constantly changing up how we train tactics or anything else, but it's that individual one-on-one contact. 'Cause you're going to spend 17 weeks with probably 4 to 5 different officers, and you're going to get a feel for each one of their different styles and everything. But you're going to learn a lot from them, and then the learning continues once you get out and you start going to calls with the more experienced officers and everything, and just seeing how they interact. Because now you can kind of take a step back and you're not being scrutinized for every little thing. So you can watch somebody else do the work. And then that's where I learned a lot of stuff too. Like I went to calls with a officer named Bob Hansen. Smooth talking dude, was a negotiator, and I just watching him how he interacted with people. I took so many lessons away from that, because I was still kind of that young. You're gonna do what I tell you, or whatever. And then just watching him how he interacted with people, and I was like, all right, this is good information. This is how I want to be, and then also seeing those sergeants, the sergeants that mentored me, and there's some that they were just there, and then there were some that you could tell they really cared about their people, and those are the ones I wanted to be like. But those FTOs, hands down, and I constantly work with them and look at what they do, and hopefully make sure they know that I see what they're doing, and I know that they're the key to our success.
Do the FTOs, do they go through training?
Yeah, they'll go through a little class and everything, and so they'll go through a week-long class usually, and just how to document everything, because everything's just documentation. But I think the big lessons come in is the feedback from the sergeants and the lieutenant, as far as this is how, this is a good way to mentor, this is how you should be doing it, take a step back, step in here, so it takes a little time for them to get a good feel on how to do it and everything. But if you want to be a leader in the organization, be that FTO, because you're going to learn all those little lessons. And it made me a better officer ultimately too, because I'm like, now I really got to know this stuff to be able to teach a new officer and everything.
Absolutely.
So
Gotcha.
Makes sense.
So you just said you're coming up on 23 years with the police department.
I hit 23 years in April.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
From when you started and being new till now, what are some of the big changes you've seen in your time here with Sioux City PD?
Well, more awareness of mental health issues. So, and we've seen it across the firefighter field, the military field, and everything. I think we're more aware of the effect that the job has on our mental health and how we process information. And I know just through my career, just some of the things I dealt with, I kind of recognize now, just how the job affected some of those things, or how I responded in those situations, and it manifested itself in how I did my work and everything. So, we have that more of that awareness, and so I think we're doing better about taking care of each other and watching out for each other, and just kind of intervening when we need to intervene. Now, obviously, we can't save everybody, and by save everybody, I don't mean just necessarily the suicide end of it. I mean like some of the people that get themselves in trouble and ultimately end up losing their jobs and everything. But at the very least, we're getting better about recognizing, these life events that either signal a bigger issue or can cause bigger issues and stuff too.
Yeah.
So,
any memorable calls that stick out that really make you remember, like you're really fortify that this is why I do it, this is why I love the job, and make it all worth it in the end?
There's been several deals, like within just a very short span, we had 3 officers shot. It's like I spent 13 years in the department. We never really had anyone. We had some people kind of take some pot shots at us and anything, but it's like no one's ever been seriously hurt. And then, April 29th, 2013, Kevin McCormick gets shot in the head. And I'm working that day, and just the crush of people that come to aid an officer and start that hunt. And initially I was kind of helping. I was just got assigned to investigation, so I'm helping the lead detective on that case. we were looking for the guy that ultimately shot Kevin for some other stuff. He was robbing drug dealers and stuff, so we'd been out looking for him all week. And so as soon as that popped off, I knew who it was. I knew who we were looking for. We could start coordinating that stuff. So that was kind of an, odd deal. I mean, it was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then just a little over a year later, Jill gets shot. Jill Ohm gets shot. And I took that one kind of hard because eventually, as the investigation progressed, I realized, oh, this is another one of my suspects I'm looking for, The guy that ultimately shot her was someone I had a case on that week that did a carjacking. And, I was just 2 steps behind him, So I carried a lot of that guilt with me for years, and everything. And just recently, finally got to sit down with Jill and kind of talk about things. And, and I knew she, didn't begrudge me any of it. It's like I didn't control this guy's actions. It's just I felt like I didn't do enough at the time. And, but it was still good to get it out. And then so then I'm kind of seeing a pattern, it's like we get these methed out guys that are robbing people. They're dangerous people, so we got to get them sooner. So I get another methed out guy that's robbing people, and I worked the case pretty hard and took it as far as I could, but ultimately we couldn't get a prosecution because the witness was not very reliable. And so, charges get dropped, and then a few months later he shoots an officer, but, luckily it was not a very serious wound. I mean, it's still pretty serious to get shot, but comparatively, it was a little through and through on the leg, and
comparatively to the other 2.
Yep, and then he handled it very well. So, so these were kind of eye-opening experiences. And around that time too, we had an officer had to shoot somebody that was poking his head out the window to, point a gun at officers that were trying to arrest him, and so it was very eye-opening at that point as to the actual dangers of the job and everything. It's like I've been punched and kicked and hit and everything else, but I'm like, all right, now it's getting dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of a eye-opening experience. One of the other hard calls I had to do was the investigation of the death of an officer. He was off duty, and Sergeant Fleckenstein passed away at his house, and I was the lead investigator on that. So that was a tough one for me because it's easier to do the job when you can create that separation.
Absolutely.
Right?
Know exactly what you're talking
Yep.
about.
So I'm not personally invested in this person. It's like I care about you. I want to take care of you, but I can keep a wall up.
There's
I can
the
keep the
separation.
right. Yeah. And unfortunately, like with Jay, I'm doing the investigation, so everyone's looking to me for answers, and it was just one of those deaths that it's not a crime. It's just a death,
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't have the answers, and at the same time, I feel like I couldn't fully mourn my friend because I'm trying to keep that separation. And so it was a very difficult case to deal with and to investigate and everything. But, and that was the first time I ever experienced dreams from the job, it definitely affected my dreams and stuff, and certain the early signs of that, of PTS and everything. I was starting to recognize those. So I think that helped me. The mental health training that I had up to there kind of helped me recognize some of the patterns that were coming up. And although I didn't start counseling anything, I could, I knew I had to let stuff out and, just find a way to deal with it and everything. So definitely, as we go, all the mental health training I did have, because I did want to be a counselor. I was heavily invested in mental health and stuff. It's ultimately kind of helped me deal with a lot of the stuff that has come up, because the last 3 years have been a complete shit show for me.
Yeah.
And just luckily, these partnerships, the acknowledgement of mental health issues and being more open, where we don't have to have this I can handle anything persona, has kind of definitely made things better. And I've come to realize the partnerships that we develop in this career help us succeed. Not only just get ahead in the job, not do the job well, but also when stuff goes off the rails, help support us through those situations and everything, because like coming out of COVID and the riots, I had a bout with cancer, and then I lost my son a year later, and and now I'm looking at possibly another bout with cancer, but it's just I know I got these great relationships that is going to help me through it and everything. Sure. And but also the job also develops this little cynicism in me a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
But I use it to cope things. You know, it's like one of my sayings lately has been, it gets worse before it gets worse. You know, and people are like, God, that's so cynical. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't mean it to be that way. It's just,
Yeah.
it's a reminder that, you know, it's like people that want life to get easier, it may not get easier, and you just have to drive on and keep pushing because this is just the way it is. You know, another lesson I took from the infantry is we'd be out on these road marches, right? Got 60 to 100 pounds gear on your pack, and you know, you're just marching along. You have no idea where you're going or how far you're going. You say, hey, Gunny, how much farther we got to go? One more hill. There's always one more hill.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just like you just got to keep plodding, you know, and it's like if I don't start packing my gear, someone else has got to carry it. But I also know when I can't carry it anymore, I've got that relationship with people that they'll help me carry it. So those, you know, some of those things have definitely helped get me through the years, and it shaped the way I see things now and shaped my career and just lessons learned.
So,
Does PD, like, we have a peer support team and stuff, Shipper? Yeah.
Just gonna get into that.
Yep. Yeah. Does PD have a peer support team or?
Yep, we started doing peer support stuff probably just under 10 years ago, maybe. We had a couple officers. One of our officers, Andrew Dutler, was an actual counselor for several years, and then we had another officer that had his master's in forensic psychology that came in, Kevin Erickson, and we were kind of dabbling in some different models and everything else, and so they started working and they kind of implemented a peer support deal, and ultimately ended up developing their own kind of peer support model, and now they're both off the PD, and they're marketing their business, that A&K Consulting, where they're going out trying to teach some of the lessons they've learned. And you know, because Kevin ultimately had to retire because of some PTSD issues that he had from the job. You know, he had a pretty bad call and it affected him, and then Andrew just he saw some other opportunities, and you know, it's the way it is, you know. But I wish them the best. But they, you know, we've been working with the peer support stuff, and I think we've got a pretty decent program, and we're a little more cognizant of some of these issues. And the other thing we got going too is what we call the early intervention system on the department. So if we use force, we get in a pursuit, you know, there's certain things that we do that we have to document. So I get in a car pursuit, I got to document and everything. After so many warning, an alert gets triggered, you know, so I'll get sent an alert on one of my officers and stuff, and typically I'll bring them in, just kind of set them down every now and again, just see how things are going. So that way I create this climate of having that open door and reassuring them, like, hey, if there's stuff going on, let us know. If there's some training that you need to make you better, let me know. If there's something going on in your personal life that's affecting the decisions that you make, you know. So we're trying to take a little bit higher view of what their behaviors are and see if we can identify a pattern or something that needs to be addressed ahead of time and try to intervene before that, you know. And because of the peer support stuff and some of the stuff we're doing, I think we've been a little bit better about catching people that are having some issues and getting those issues addressed and keeping them from going into the deep end and getting in some trouble or something, you know. Because I know, like, back when I was having my divorce, clear back in 2007, it affected the way some of the decisions I made. You know, as I could tell I was being more short and a little quicker to act with people and stuff. And at the time, you know, I don't think we were as cognizant of some of these issues as we are now. And so it didn't get addressed. But I recognized how that affected my work and my ability to do my job and the decisions I was making. So now I carry that forward, and I go back, especially if I hear if someone's having problems with their marriage. You know, I see what I can do to help out at work and everything, get them some of the help that they may need just to deal with it, but also just have some of that empathy. It's like, I've been there, I've done that, and you know, it's like it gets worse before it gets worse, but it does eventually get better. You know, it's like I was like, divorces are terrible, but no good marriage ends in divorce, as one of my favorite comedians says. It's like you know, you got to keep driving on and, you know, rely on some of the partnerships that you got. So,
well, it sounds like you guys have been pretty progressive in that aspect. Then that's good. Yeah.
So, Jeremy, you said you're a lieutenant, and I know earlier you were talking about sergeants and stuff. Can you kind of describe, like, maybe the command structure, how PD set up? Because, like, you know, for us, you know, we have, you know, our shift runs, you know, we have an on-duty assistant chief. All three shifts have one assistant chief. and then you go down to each firehouse has, whether it's a lieutenant or a captain that's on the engine that's in charge of the crew and stuff. So, and that's kind of like our breakdown. We have our drivers, our assigned drivers. That's your job every day. But yeah, can you kind of describe, I guess, the rank system or the command structure for you guys?
Yep. So, I mean, we have all of our officers. We don't really have any command structure in that. We got our master patrol officer, but it's more of a pay scale. They don't get any extra duties necessarily or anything like that. You'll see a couple of our guys running around the looks like corporal stripes. They're the FTOs, but I mean, unless they're training someone, it doesn't. It's just kind of a status thing, and I guess help recognize that they're an FTO. Next up is our frontline supervisor. There's a sergeant. And they'll typically have a team of 5 to 8 officers, and they'll be assigned to side of town. So, I got a west side team, I got an east side team, and then I got a swing team, and they'll cover.
And each team has a sergeant?
Yep.
So almost kind of like a battalion kind of role. Okay.
So, yep. So I got a team of, on my watch, there are about 6 to 8 officers on a team, just depending on staffing. Typically, we like to keep it about 8 officers because we're the busiest on afternoons. So that sergeant will run, 5 to 8 officers typically. Next up's the watch commander, which will be a lieutenant, and so then I got my 3 sergeants and all the officers under them, and then I report up to a captain that'll run an entire bureau. So we got uniform bureau. The uniform captain's got the most officers. We got about 80% of our officers in the uniform section. So I guess about 80, 85, 90 officers in the uniform section, and then. Investigation section, you got the crimes against persons, which is 5 detectives, crimes against property, 4 detectives, and SIU, which I believe they're up at 5 detectives right now, and each one of them have their own sergeant. And then you also have the youth bureau, which has the schools, so they've got 6 or 7 officers in the youth bureau. They all report up to their lieutenant, who reports up to the captain in charge of that bureau. And then you got support services, and that captain mainly runs all of our non-sworn personnel. And she's got a lieutenant and a sergeant too that work for her with our technology stuff and records and everything. So it's I guess it's still that kind of that paramilitary command structure and everything, and how we operate. Because I know there's always some confusion. Like my little brother's a lieutenant, and he's like, I was a lieutenant before you. I'm like, all right, fair enough,
Yeah.
So.
And I do want to talk about that later with your brother Josh. So detective and investigation and being on those teams, is that a tested position? Is that a promotion?
No,
or it's kind of a transfer?
It's a selected deal. So when there's an opening, you'll put in and have a little interview process. But what they look at is your history of work and how your reports are and your experience with, the follow-up. Because I'm constantly harping on these officers, do good reports. If you want to go to be a detective, do good reports, do a thorough investigation, because we're not taking people up there that are slugs, that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing and everything. So, so it'll be an interview process, and then just look at the history of your work and if that's something we can do. What I will say is where we fall short is we'll hire somebody for a position, or we'll accept them to a position and then train them for that position. Give them more. Obviously, you're gonna get more training and everything. But what I want to shift more is let's start getting people ready for positions before they're selected for the position. So right. So let's do more on the front end to get them ready for that. Get them to some interview schools, get them to some investigation schools, so that when they get there, they're spun up a little bit faster, because all of our assignments are time-based, so you're going to go up to investigations. You're only going to be up there for 5 years, and then you're coming back to patrol, because you're going to bring all that experience back to patrol and everything else, and it keeps things fresh and keeps it from getting stagnant. Where it kind of hurts us, though, is now we're kicking somebody with a bunch of experience back to patrol, but it ultimately works out for the organization. We could shorten that training time if we do a little more front-end work and get them ready and everything. So that's some stuff we're trying to deal with.
So you become a detective. It's not like you can spend your next 10, 15, the rest of your career as a detective. You're
going to do 5 years, and you're going to come back to patrol, which is great, because then I get detective or officers coming back out of investigations that did property crime stuff, so they recognize the frauds and the forgeries and all this other stuff, and it's not something I've had a lot of experience with, so I constantly rely on their expertise. And then I get officers that come out of investigations that like I did a lot of death investigations. I didn't mind working death scenes, so I had I was only up there for 2.5 years because I got promoted out, but any suicide, any death, any, a couple of homicides, I help work. And so, I kind of developed a skill set in that where I brought that back and helped train some of these officers to recognize some of the stuff at the scene and know what they got to do and everything else. And
Yeah, that's got to make it better,
Mhm.
coming out of there and then going back to patrol,
Right.
and then like, well, I know what needs done for this scene.
Yep.
You know?
So then when we do have a homicide, I know I can rely on a sergeant that's been up in investigations to homicide. That's going to be my lead sergeant for that scene to kind of run everything, and I can rely on that experience and expertise, or an officer that's been up there. They know what they need to do to lock down the scene, secure it, and make sure it's taken care of.
Where have you been through your career so far?
After I got hired on, did a couple years on patrols, we all do, but then early in my career, I got selected to go be the school resource officer for East High School. So I was up there from the end of 2002 to 2005, and it's great seeing where those kids are at now, because they're all adults in their 30s with kids and everything now, and I constantly have them coming up to me like, oh yeah, you're my DARE officer, you're my school officer, and everything else. It's like it's like the DARE program doesn't necessarily work, but it didn't hurt either. It was
Sure.
but it was a great experience because I developed a lot of relationships with kids that have carried forward and everything, and after that I spent a couple more years on patrol, and then I got selected to be the crime prevention officer, and that's where I kind of came in my own, because I liked talking to the public and eventually I kind of turned it into a semi-PIO role, or a public information officer role as well, because I'd have these reporters calling trying to find out information about this and that, and the lieutenant that was supposed to be the PIO was always busy or not available. So I was like, well, I can stick my crime prevention message in. So I started doing that a little bit more and kind of grew it, got us into social media and doing, being more engaged with the media that way, and still doing my public talks and everything. So kind of grew that role a bit, and then back to patrol, came back up to Detective Bureau doing crimes against persons, and then got promoted out of that as a sergeant. Spent a couple years just on patrol, loving life, and then we started a new position called the community policing sergeant. So we've always been doing community policing. We started something we called community team policing, where all the officers are assigned to an area of town, and they have to work as a team to address those issues and do the outreach and everything. But the community policing sergeant was more of a PIO role and helping coordinate that, because a lieutenant's ultimately in charge of all that program.
Sure.
It's just a lot because they're also running a watch and everything else. So now the sergeant can take care of a lot of the administrative stuff and scheduling and doing some of that PIO role and everything else. And the crime prevention officer moved under them. So Sergeant Tom Gill and Val Rose, they run our social media. They do all of our interviews. They're going out doing talks and all these trainings and everything else. So, they carry a lot of load for us and kind of a big help in the recruiting end of it too. Yeah. Even though it's technically not their job, but it definitely helps market us and brand us and everything else.
And we need all the help we can get
Right.
in that area right
Yep.
now, both
So-
sides.
That's the best way, right? Is you want to inspire someone to look at your job and say, that looks really awesome and fun.
Yep.
And I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that team.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
And then after I left that, I got promoted to lieutenant. I've just been on the afternoon shift. But, kind of circling back to that, the PIO stuff. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I joined the 185th Air National Guard down there at the air base in 2006. It took me a couple years to do it because I had all my head, well, I was a Marine, I'm going to join the Air Guard. And then I was like, all right, I'll check it out. And I was like, all right, this is pretty dope.
Yeah.
I got commissioned and became the public affairs officer down there. And then, so I got all this great military training about how to message and plan the communication, do communications planning and everything else. So I was helping run the 185th's website and social media and generating media product, video and photos and everything else. So I just slid that back over to the PD, and I recognized that the more we can get on the news for good things and the more partnerships we build up in the community helps us recruit, and like my big message now is like, we're doing everything we can to recruit people that reflect this community, recruit qualified people, but we also need you. If you think we're a good department, we need you to send people our way too, because we can't do it all.
Yeah,
And as we talked about earlier, we do have great support here. And I point back to the riots, the riots. our city didn't burn down because we got a great relationship with the
great
people.
relationship,
You know, it's like
yeah.
we had one bad night where we had a couple broken windows. I can live with that. You know, it's like we didn't have to gas. You know, there wasn't these large riots.
I think I saw your picture. You guys were handing bottles of water to the
Yeah,
protesters.
it was
like
some-
just
it
it
was
was
a
a
great- it
chatting thing.
actually
But like
was
you
a
said,
good
that
thing.
you know, I remember reading an article and stuff on social media from both sides of stuff, but saying with the body cameras and stuff,
Yeah.
you guys got you know, that was a positive thing that came out of something that could have been
Right.
super negative. But that's that relationship building that just you know
Yeah, thank
it
God we
makes
have
a
the media
big
people we do have
uh,
here. I'd say,
difference.
you know, the experience level of, you know, those older people that are there now, but they've always painted us in a good light. I think
Right.
same with PD.
Well,
for
it's
the most
easy
part,
for them to
it's-
do it when you're out there doing good work. And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and so, but it's like I'd always work that in the public outreach stuff and the public information stuff is we got a message, we got a brand, and so that drives recruits our way too and everything. So I'm always out there singing your guys' praises too, you know, making sure people
Yeah.
recognize. So.
Appreciate that.
So what about like the within jobs and stuff, PD? So we talked about detectives, but what about like the TAC guys, the SWAT guys, the tech rescue? You know, like we have like each one of our stations kind of has a specialty. Mike,
Yep.
you know, being out at 8s, I'm a hazmat guy. These guys at 3s are water rescue. The guys at 1s are all tech rescue and stuff. Do you have, as far as, is there guys spots where guys specialize in different things or different teams within which you guys, you know, besides just your different bureaus and
Yep, and we have the tactical team. I was on that for a couple of years. You get selected for that one. Then that one you can stay on as long as you want to stay on. So, but there's a selection process, and you know you got to demonstrate a certain level of maturity and everything, and some tactical capability. Because that, you know, coming back to the teams, you know, like on the street level, a little more impromptu teams are thrown together. We got to make plans on the fly. Whereas the TAC guys, they constantly train, you know, and so they know their jobs. They just like. You get on that team for a while. It's like if you cut left, I know what you're going to do over there, so I know what I got to do over here and everything. So, yeah, I know that the tactical stuff is pretty cool. I'm in charge of the negotiators right now. I've been on that team before as well, and so we've got 8 negotiators that are, you know, specifically trained to deal with these crisis situations and negotiate. We say, but typically we don't have a lot of hostage situations. A lot of times it's just barricaded people that we're dealing with or trying to talk someone off a ledge, but you know we get specialized training in how to you know deal with those situations and kind of communicate with people. And a lot of people think, well, you know, I'm a good talker, I could be a negotiator, and it's like actually the big thing with the negotiator is listening. It's like I don't need you to talk, I need you to listen.
That's what
You know,
they want,
it's yeah, right. So I know as a negotiator, I gotta get you talking, because if you get talking, then you start venting, and then you start bringing your emotional level down and start being a little more rational. So that's where the negotiator comes in. And then we got a few other specialty jobs like K9. That's another selection one, and you'll be in that for as long as the K9 is serviceable and everything.
Cool.
So
how many K9 officers do you guys have?
we've got 4 K9s. Right now, they're mostly Belgian Malinois. I think we got a Shepherd, everything, and we call them dual-purpose dogs. So they can sniff for certain drugs. They can also track, and then they'll also do the bite apprehensions.
That's very cool. That's always been something cool to watch, though, those dogs work. I come from a little law enforcement background with my family, and my old man was a bomb technician, so we had a bomb dog in our house growing up, a Malinois, and watching those dogs work was always cool. And then working with you guys and watching your dogs work, if they got to take a chunk of ass every now and then, that's what they do. But also watching them, just I love watching that.
Those dogs, like they're so impressive. I had it was out at Art Splash one year and stuff, and the cops were doing a demo, and they're like, "Hey, you know, you want to put on the bite sleeve?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want to." And they're like, "No, do it." I'm like, "All right, I'll put it." So the officers, he's explaining to me like, you know, what's going to happen or whatever. He's like, "Oh, by the way, I need you to put on this neoprene sleeve to help with the swelling." And I said, "What?" He's like, "Well, to help if it's swelling, you know, you got to." I'm like, "All right, this is getting like way worse." And then put the sleeve on, and then I hadn't even seen the dog yet, and then he brings the dog out, and this is, I don't know, I can't remember if the dog's name was like Zeus or Hercules or something.
Zeus.
This dog was like, I mean, it had to have been 160 pounds of solid muscle, squatty, like head this, I mean,
a
jaw
with legs.
solid dog, and I mean, a very impressive animal. And that dog, he saw me with the sleeve on, and he's like, I could see it in his eyes, like all he wanted was like he was gonna go. And as soon as the officer said, "Okay, go," and I mean, he didn't get my actual arm, he got the sleeve and stuff, but just the power in that animal and stuff. And I can imagine if he gets on a bad guy, dude. But as soon as that officer told him to drop it, like, I mean, it was like right now, and he just stopped, and he's like, he wanted, like, he still wanted, but he was like, he was done. But yeah, just the amount of strength that those animals have, they're very impressive.
And that canine handler, that's not an 8-hour job. That's 24 hours that they work those dogs and train them and everything. And what I always tell people too, or from working with the canines and everything, it's like, they're not mean dogs. This is a game to them. You put that sleeve on, this like, that's my toy.
Oh yeah, that's what he wanted. He wanted that, but it wasn't like I hate you and I'm gonna like hurt you.
It's
it
not
was
work to them at all.
No, it was like he just wanted it because he wanted to bite on it.
Right. So and like looking for those drugs. They're just looking for their toy. So, they sent up those toys with with explosives or whatever. They make the toys smell like that, and so their drive is to find that toy.
It's like, I know I get a reward if I find that.
And then I get rewarded and everything. So and what's great about them is, like, it was explained to me, it's like, if you walk into somebody's house and they're making chocolate chip cookies, you smell chocolate chip cookies, right?
Oh yeah.
If that dog walks in the house, it smells flour, baking soda, butter, brown sugar. It smells individual things and everything. Awesome. So that's what's so great about them. But they're great too in that dog shows up. You get somebody that's all methed out and they're looking for a fight, and that dog shows up. It changes the calculus real fast, and or they're thinking about running. The dog's just got to be there. I'm just like, you're not gonna outrun that dog. So it cools them down a bit and kind of changes the calculus. But then we get them out with these kids and stuff, and kids are petting the dogs and having a good time with them. So
ours was a fantastic family dog, but like when it was time to work, it was time to work. But then I'd go back to, he'd be just a perfect family dog. And one of the best videos I ever saw was a guy talking about getting arrested, and they were a couple canine officers. My dad would pull up the clip. He's like, take the ass whooping. Don't ever take the dog. Take the ass whooping every time, but don't ever take the dog. There's this guy in the back of the car. It was so funny.
That's funny.
That's good. I want to back up a little bit. You're talking about the school resource officers. Can you explain what today the school resources officers do and what that position involves?
In Sioux City here, we have an officer assigned to all 3 public high schools, east, west, north, and then also the 3 junior high schools, and then they also help cover the elementary schools. And their primary assignment is to investigate crimes that kids commit, and believe it or not, kids get naughty or whatever, they'll break some windows or whatever else is. And then they also try to help keep the school secure. So, all 6 of these public schools have basically an armed officer in the school every day that is there to respond to emergencies and help keep those kids safe, and as an SRO, I always took that part very seriously. So I always went around, made sure the doors were secure, and just challenging people that were in the halls that shouldn't have been in the halls and stuff. Making sure that no one's coming in my school to hurt my kids. It's like I want to take care of these guys. But then they also, we got a little, I don't want to say carried away, but it's like, I think we were a little quick to charge kids a lot back in those, early 2000s, hand out citations like candy. And we kind of recognized the folly of that way, and I think we pulled that back a little bit more, and we're doing a little more mentoring and stuff, But what's great is you have that interaction with the kids. So, I mean, you're talking a quarter to 30% of the Sioux City population that these officers are having interactions with every day. I mean, the high school's got 13 to 1,500 kids in them now. And so they're developing these relationships and mentoring and trying to divert kids from troubles. And I know, just like some of the interactions I had with kids, I had a handful of now adults come up to me and was like, hey, because of what you did, kind of set me on the right path and everything. So, I took that stuff very seriously, and I've also seen some of the adults now that I had back then that I knew were hurting or having problems, and I see where they're at now, and it's like, if only I could have done more, but it's great for us in that we have somebody there that knows all these kids and has this relationship. And then in addition to it, they're one of the first ones typically to investigate allegations of abuse. They get a lot of abuse claims and everything else, and we give them some extra training to recognize signs of abuse and other issues and stuff. So. It's kind of the program there, and we got one officer that's assigned to his specialty is runaways and stuff, looking for missing kids, and most of our missing kids are runaways, and they go out and shake the bushes, look for those kids, and hold people accountable that are hiding them out.
Sure.
Yeah, politics aside, whatever you think, that has to be the school resources officer position has to be probably the best thing you could support to make sure that the kids are safe in school. And
Well, not only
that's
that,
kind of
but
another
what a
thing
better way to paint you guys in a positive light
Yep.
by having that interaction and building it.
Well, that's what
hopefully
I
from
like. That,
a
like you
young
said,
age.
you're making a contact with how many people
Right.
that are going to be citizens and taxpayers and everything else in the future and have kids of their own. It's like how how many contacts that is to make a positive.
Right, and so typically, if I'm just out on patrol, my contact's going to be typically if you call for service, someone broke into my house, or I stop you for speeding or everything else. But we got those officers in the school that just hang out in the school all day, and get to know these kids and and their families and everything. So it's a whole different.
Is there
level.
a push to put them in the elementary schools?
I don't. I guess I don't know if we've heard of one of any or not. I know right now the staffing, we couldn't support it.
Sure.
We're trying to just get enough to make sure we can maintain what we have and do our essential services, and everything. It'd be great if if we could tack on 40 more officers. There's plenty of other things we could do, and
sure.
lower response times, and and do a little more proactive stuff too. But kind of come back. I think you were kind of touching on it a little bit. There's a push to get cops out of schools across the nation. There's a lot of different places, but just like the recruiting and the community policing and the relationship with the community, it's all going to come back to that organization and the climate that they have and everything. And so, you got to take a look at what that organization brings to the community and how they interact with it. And luckily, I think we got a great relationship, and we do things a little differently. And I think we've been a little more progressive in how we approach some stuff. So that's definitely helped us out. And I think us having officers in the schools are a very valuable thing. And
not
like,
even
how do
just
you-
for the protection aspect, right?
Yeah.
You keep bringing on the interactions. You get to
Right.
see these kids grow up, and eventually they come back and they're like, "Oh,
but then you're also
Lieutenant
familiar.
McClure, I remember when you were in school, man. That was."
And you're familiar with these kids, and the ones that are heading down that path, and you can do a little more different interventions or be a little more strict with them and everything else. Where if I'm just coming across, if I'm on patrol and I just get Johnny for the first time, I may not know that. No, Johnny's been hanging out with the gangs and he's doing all these problems, and I may just give him a little talking to and send him on his way instead of sending him some other diversion that I can.
Well, it's like it's a whole a whole thing with I mean it's with the schools, with everything, but I mean it's like, how do you build a state championship football team? Is you start these kids, you start the program, young, right? And then you build up, so by the time that they're seniors and stuff, you have this program, right? So we do it on the fire side, where we're fire prevention week, fire prevention month. We're doing the fire safety talks with preschoolers and kindergartners, and then they get to a certain age, and then they go through the smokehouse, and then we you got the career academy now starting with the fire stuff. We got our programs out of Western Iowa Tech there, but you're having interactions with students and stuff all the time, so that you're building, whether it's a fire safety model, and then eventually once they get to a point, they start thinking about, maybe I've had these positive interactions with these people, I respect them, I thought maybe I want that as a career. But for police, like you say, if every interaction you have with an officer is a negative thing because you did something bad, and then now you see an officer did something bad, it's Pavlov's dog, right? That
Right.
eventually becomes like all you have is, so now all of a sudden, if the officer's with them in the school, you're getting these positive interactions, and now police is a positive thing, and that's where you're building that foundation, so that you do have people coming on that later on that say, hey, you know what, I remember you told me this or this. I've kept that with me, and I've told my kids and stuff, or and then maybe their kid wants to be an officer because of something that an officer did for their parent. Yeah, I mean it can be a positive thing. It's not just always a negative, in the negative light for that stuff.
Well, and I definitely look at recruiting as a long game too. It's like all these outreach events that we go to is like we're talking to kids to plant that seed, and I do this when I talk to groups too. Like I said, you have to support us by sending people our way too, or encouraging people to be firefighters, to be police officers and stuff. You can't just say you guys need to do better and not help us out do better. It's like this is a partnership. It's like
Absolutely.
it's like if this is the kind of fire department or police department you want for your community, you're gonna have to send some people that way. And so we're constantly looking at how we can build these partnerships and get people involved. And I love that you said you guys are doing the career academy with the high school. I would love to get into that.
Well, yeah, because I know Anthony will have some stuff, with our crews and people, our members will go and help with classes and stuff. But his numbers, what he's been doing down there, are just going through the roof with the kids that are going through that. Yeah, that are going through, and we're starting to see. Now we're just starting out at WIT, because I'm an adjunct with the fire program out there, and our numbers have been way down too. Just like recruiting for everything, for PD recruiting and fire recruiting, and then our classes out there, we're seeing the reflection in the numbers there that our numbers are way down. But this second semester was one of the first semesters that we really saw the kids that went through Career Academy through the Sioux City schools, and when they graduate and then they come out to Western Iowa Tech kind of second semester and continue on their education with their fire stuff and everything. So we're starting to see this whole program build, but that's, again, you start that foundation at that, when they're young. But yeah, you just got to get a hold of Anthony, because I'm sure he'd be happy to do something with you guys,
I'm curious 3 to 5 years from now, how many people will have work here that maybe did the Career Academy or something.
Well, I tell you, the career, it would be interesting with the Career Academy. And I know there's an individual, there's a couple, let's see, at least one, I believe, that went through. No, I take that back. But I know, like, guys have coming to WIT, they're taking the tests and stuff. And even the kids that we've had out at Western Iowa Tech, the amount of guys that Yoakum and I have taught that are either on the department or on the list and stuff, we're seeing a lot of numbers. But yeah, we're getting that. That would be the ultimate model is if you had an interaction with somebody at, for a guy on the job, to have an interaction with somebody in third grade or second grade, right? And talk to them there, and you're on the job long enough that kid can come through and do the Career Academy, go to WIC, get his fire science degree, make the list, get hired and stuff, and then someday come back to you and say, hey, you came and saw me. I remember you, or remember your name. You came and saw my class when I was in second grade. If somebody, that's that full circle thing. I think it would just be really, it would be pretty awesome to be able to see, to be around long enough that you could see that, to really know that you made that impact on somebody from something you told them, when they were just, like I said, build that foundation, but we're all seeing the recruiting thing, the numbers and stuff are so down with everything,
Yeah. And I think one other thing that hurts law enforcement in that area too is just the academy process that we have, especially in Iowa here. And if there's one thing that I can change in the next 10 years, this would be it, is to get a police officer job. Typically you got to go do a 2 years police science, right? Mm-hmm. Very technical degree. They teach you all. It's basically an academy, a 2-year degree academy. Or you get your 4-year criminal justice, or you come out of the military, or whatever, and then you get hired on a department, and they're going to send you to the police academy. And most agencies are going to use the police academy, the ILEA, the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy. So then I got to get hired on. I go to 12 weeks of the academy and come back and do the training. Now I get why the academy came out is, we're trying to professionalize the force. And at the time, back in the day, it was, you want to be a cop? All right, you're a cop. Here's a badge, a gun, go do the job. It's like, well, we got to give them some training and stuff, but during that time, they started developing, those police science programs, the criminal justice education. People are going through that, but then we're sending them right back to the academy. And, in Wisconsin cities, small town or any city is going to spend $5,000 to $10,000 to send somebody to the academy. And I'm just like, what other career field do you go to school to learn how to do that job and then have to go to another school to do that job? It's like, why are we doing this? Why are we not making, having the academy have the oversight, but we got these community colleges that essentially have police academies. Okay. Let these people pay, let people pay, go to the academy, pay on their own dime, go to these schools, become certified officers. And then when they graduate that 2-year program, they can, the academy can still test them out and everything, make sure, just like a nurse, an EMT, like I did my EMT training. Yeah. I went and passed my, NR EMT and the state thing, it's like any organization now could hire me on, and they're not going to send me to EMT boot camp, Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is ridiculous. And I think I don't want to say it's a joke, but like coming out of the military, you go to the academy and they're doing it like a little boot camp thing. And I'm like, why are we so clinging on to this boot camp mentality thing. It's like boot camps are designed the way they are to tear everybody down, build them back up. But mainly they were born out of a conscription army. It's like I have to take people that don't want to be here and make them disciplined to be here. It's like it's a volunteer force now. It's like we don't have to have that mentality, and it's like that's a model I'd like to get away from just a little bit. But it's like we just hinder ourselves because now these small towns are paying $5,000 to $10,000 to send somebody to the academy just to have them later poached off by bigger departments possibly and everything. It's like we're hurting people. It's like we could get people that maybe would be interested in the job and not have to jump through so many hoops to get started in doing it. It's like we could still develop a professional group of people to start these jobs without having to go through all these stupid hoops the redundancy of it all and everything.
It makes a lot of sense when you say that because you compared it to like your EMT. These kids get their paramedic license on their own, pay for all the testing from NREMT on their own.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then they come to us and they just do their field training.
Right.
Then they're in the streets on their own. Like, that would make sense for you guys too.
I think the academy model's just outmoded. It's like I wouldn't leave to go to another agency because I'd have to start over probably. Like if I wanted to go to Des Moines, they're going to send me to Des Moines Academy. I'm like, I get it. You want to put your culture and people, the state patrol or whatever. Fine, if that's how you want to do it, But I'm like, I'm also looking at the state troopers. I'm like, I don't want to go to your Marine Corps wannabe boot camp just to be a part of your organization. It's like I've been through that once. I'm good. And so we set these roadblocks up in law enforcement where we make it harder to let or transfer. We make it hard to get on. Period. There's so many hurdles to get good people in the door. And granted, there's got to be some gatekeeping. I can't just hire anybody. I need someone that's going to, be morally fit for the job, able to think on their own, do the critical thinking, be physically fit and everything. But I think there's a better way we could do it where we could offset some of these costs and just get people interested and have them put that investment in to begin with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Perfect. I think we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then we'll touch up on a few things for the last half of this.
All right.
So cool. Perfect.
Are we rolling?
I think so. I never.
Welcome
figured it
back
out,
to
but
You can't ever figure out the
Before the Tones Drop
5,
podcast.
4, 3, 2.
I'm Jeremy.
Can't count it down.
Ben's going to get replaced by Jeremy.
He should.
wouldn't be hard. I want to talk about your Air Guard career then a little bit. What exactly do you do down at the 185th? How long you been there, and what's that career been like?
I joined the 185th in 2006, and just went into security forces because I was at the time. It's like I still want to tote guns and do action and adventure stuff, and then it didn't take too long before I realized that I'd like to get my commission, and around the same time with the PD, I was doing that community policing, the crime prevention officer deal. So I was getting more involved in public outreach and public information. And the unit saw that and they had an opening in the public affairs section. And so they hired me onto that, sent me and got commissioned. And so my initial plan was just, I'm going to do, my next 12 years, get my 20 years. I'm going to retire out of public affairs as a major and just be done with it. So that's where I sat, just running public affairs down there. And I loved it because I learned about, not only the photography end of it, but video and the messaging and everything else. So, we started making amazing product. And I had a great guy down there, Senior Master Sergeant Vince DeGroot. He's still down there. As far as making product and video and messaging and articles, he's phenomenal at what he does. And I got super excited about it when we finally get some leadership that respected what we did and started giving us more opportunities. So then we started getting to go to Kosovo and go to these flyover events and everything else. And we start cranking out amazing images and video product that gets picked up by not only Air National Guard, but big Air Force, and so instead of, what I frequently tell people is like, why do you want to invite us? You can take the picture and stick it on your social media, yes, and tens of people will see it. But if you invite us, thousands of people will see it.
Correct.
It's like, and it tied back into promoting the unit. Because right now we're in air refueling wing with the KC-135, and it's supposed to stay in service another 20 years, but eventually it's going to phase out, and we need the next generation aircraft. So we got to build the infrastructure now and stuff. And so I saw my role as supporting their strategic vision by promoting the unit. And the more noise we can make, the more attention we can make in a good way, the more senators are going to come, the more Congress people are going to come, the more the community are going to see the value we bring and are going to start supporting us. And then the more they're going to want to invest in making sure that unit stays here. And I had friend down in the Des Moines unit, the 132nd, and they're an ISR unit now, so they don't have a flying mission necessarily. They fly, but not out of Des Moines. What people don't realize is they're doing a mission every day from Des Moines, Iowa. They're flying RPAs all over the world from Des Moines, Iowa. So they're doing that mission. They're flying over whatever target area we're over, and then they take their lunch break, run down to Subway in Des Moines, Iowa, and come back, and they're back, over Iraq or something.
Wild.
So, but it's like we got that flying mission, so we got that beautiful plane that circles the area. But I guess it's also helping people realize how operationalized that unit is. The 185th is constantly deploying, constantly going all over the world. Our aircraft have been over every major conflict since we converted to the 135. We've flown medevacs out of Afghanistan, constantly refilled aircraft over, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, flew refilled aircraft over Libya. We're constantly in the PACOM area, the Pacific area. So we have people all over the world all the time. And it's like it's supposed to be essentially a reserve unit, where you do your 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. But there's some jobs down there you can be gone all the time.
Yeah, it doesn't even seem like reserve. Just especially working with a bunch of the 185th guys and the guys that work out of this unit down here. It's like, man, you guys are you're active. I mean, just active all the time doing something. So
and
cool.
We're constantly being relied on to support a federal mission. In addition to that, because it's Guard, technically we're the state of Iowa's Air Force, is essentially how the Guard works. And then when the feds, or the federal government needs us, then we get federalized and we go support, an active duty unit, or go deploy somewhere. But then we come back to the state, and then Governor Reynolds owns us, and we support floods and different stuff going on in the state and everything too. So we're constantly busy, constantly going all over the place, and it's tough finding that good balance, because you can't be good at you can't give 100% to two things. It's like so. I think my Air Guard career suffered a little bit because I invested more in my PD career. I didn't want to be gone all the time, deployed, so I didn't volunteer for a lot of deployments and stuff. I was content where I was at, and I thought I was going to retire out, but then I decided to stick around, try to get promoted, and I've been with the Office of the Inspector General and doing our complaints resolution. So fraud, waste, abuse complaints, or somebody just somebody has a problem, they can come to me, and I'll help them figure out where we need to go. We're doing an investigation. But what's nice is I've always, and what I try to make people realize and employers realize is, like, people that are in the Guard or in the reserves, they're going off. Yes, it's a pain to have them take off, but they're getting training that you can never give them. It's like the amount of leadership training that I got from the Air Force through the Air National Guard, the PD couldn't keep up with it. I just completed my Air Command Staff College with the Air Force, and it's like that level of leadership training that I got from that. PD can't give that to me, and I brought that back, and I think that definitely helped me get my promotion, because I understand some of these leadership stuff that I could translate to them in planning and looking at strategy and everything. So it's there's definitely a benefit. I know there's a pain in losing those people, but they're coming back, and they're bringing valuable experience back to you.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys, I can get out of the Army Guard at 38. I'll still have 17 years, whatever the math is there, with Sioux Fire, where I won't be, taken away part-time. But in the long run, I'll be better for it.
Yep, and I know my bosses would like to see me retire, just so that way I'm not gone occasionally. But I feel like there's a little bit more than I can do for the Air Guard, and there's definitely some more they can do for me. And I just kind of like to keep that relationship going a little bit longer here. So we'll see how it goes. But again, it's just finding that balance. It's tough. So. But with all things, it's like you see that trap, you fall into it yourself, or you see other people fall into it, where all they do or think is the job, and then some other things suffer because of it, and their family life suffers, or they just become all consumed with what it is they do, or and everything. And so the other thing I try to get through these younger officers is, like, when you're off, be off. Just shut it off, turn it off, be a husband, be a father, because we're gonna pull you away plenty as it is, but just shut it off. So, like, honestly, it's like I've kind of divested a lot from that culture when I'm off. I don't have a lot of blue line stuff. I try to dress unmilitaristic, uncop as I can when I'm off. I just want to be Jeremy McClure.
Right? Yeah.
I want to be a father, a grandfather, and and do some other stuff. It's like I know as a young guy, I'm driving around. I'm like, it's not that guy. He has no brake light and everything. Granted, it's tough to turn it all the way off. Because I still drive around and I can pick up on things.
Like,
and
that guy's doing this or that.
Yep.
Right
Like one time we like to road trip quite a bit, and we stopped in some town in Nebraska, and we're cruising around, and I don't want to dump on Grand Island and call them out, but I was like, this town's got a meth problem. And she's like, how do you know? I'm like, oh, I know. And so you just do a little research, and like, yeah, with a huge meth problem in Grand Island. I'm like, I told you. You see the keys, so it's tough to turn it off, but I try to remember that just you got to maintain that good work-life balance, and like the PD's terrible about, all PDs, a lot of them are terrible about taking care of our own physical fitness and health. It's like we don't have time to work out on the shift, but it's trying to get officers to maintain a level of physical fitness and health, because you're dealing with all that stress and it causes heart problems and everything else. And it's just, you got to have that outlet. And it's like, and I know there's several years there, like I quit smoking right after I got on, so I blimped up 20 pounds, and then, kind of got fat and lazy, and then I started getting back into physical fitness and running and everything, and kind of lost some of that weight again, and then, I get busy again, backtrack a little bit, and then, so it's a constant balance, but you definitely got to make time to take care of yourself. It's like you don't have to be a fitness stud doing the MRFs every day or everything, but you got to do something. For sure.
But that's what, like, sometimes I'm like, man, that cop, I'm like, I could just go grab that hat right off his head and take off running. He'd never catch me.
He'd never catch you.
Yeah.
All that gear on and everything
But
else.
if he gets a hold of you,
that's
a deal. Because
He gets that dog.
I've seen that plenty, like in the fire service in general. Growing up in the fire service, I'm like, that guy does that. But then you see him work on a call, and you're like, oh yeah, he does that. Yeah, he can do that. I shouldn't judge that quick, because everyone's levels is different. Whatever.
Well,
whatever.
and we should feel grateful. Like, granted, we're on 24 hours is our whole shift, but with the way the department pushes our physical fitness and eating healthy and pure fitness trainers, and then providing the equipment and stuff, and then also the time, and the time to be able to, and we have the time, to be able to work out and at least get on the treadmill for a little bit, do something. You guys, you jump in the car.
And we're gone.
And that's it. There is no let me take my hour working break.
Yeah.
Or like night watch, right?
We're trying to find some ways to incentivize people, because we got this Wellness 360 program, and and we're trying to figure out ways to get people to work out and encourage them to do it without, I think some people get turned off by it too, because you do have the fitness, studs and everything, or these people that are being working out and being buff and everything, and it gets annoying or intimidating some people that maybe are just falling behind or aren't that great, and so like for me, it's like I always encourage people to just do your level. The only person you got to compete against is yourself, so like I don't like working out with other people, because I'm happy you want to work out and everything, but this is also my alone time too, my time to decompress. So like I love that summer's here. I'll go to Stone Park. I'll get in the shortest shorts possible, because that's the Marine in me, and I'll spend the next hour running those hills, and the hotter and the more humid, the better. Just flushing out the headgear.
I hear a good one. It's hard to listen to the demons when you're breathing heavy enough.
Yeah.
So it's like, I love that. That's me, 100%. That's
awesome.
I got to do that.
Yep.
I got to get it out.
Get into it.
That's my way of doing it. Some people have different ways of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes working a second job is a way to get away from the first one, but whatever.
Or even if a guy doesn't have time to work out on their off days or on shift or whatever, but even just if you live an active lifestyle, makes a difference. Get out and just if you're outdoors and doing stuff, or if you somebody like to hunt or fish or work construction, do it. At least if you're just an active and not a stagnant lifestyle, whether you like to hit the gym for a couple hours or do whatever a day, you don't have to get up and move. Makes a big difference.
Shifting gears here a little bit, we talk, as firefighters, we never want to see anything burn, but we definitely love when we go to the fires and the stuff that gets the adrenaline going, and all these years in PDs, the juice still there.
Oh yeah,
when stuff's going down.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I'm more risk adverse. I want to manage risks some more. So like on my shift, it's like as fun as pursuits are, I'm a little reluctant to engage in pursuits, because I know the calculus, the risk to the reward's a little bit higher.
Correct.
And so there's some things I'm a little more more risk averse about, but it's like we got to prioritize safety, but we still the juice is there. Like that hot call comes out, somebody hits that emergency button because they're in a fight, or that gun call comes out, is how can you not love it? Turn on the lights and sirens. Because just in the break here, we were talking about the differences in our gigs. It's like, I thought about applying for the fire department, but honestly, fighting a fire doesn't thrill me, But, so when you guys are saying, like, I know the calculus. I show up, I know I got to do A, B, C, and D, It's like, and it's exciting, and I can see it, and it's the same thing for me on the PD side of it. It's like, I know I'm going to this hot call. I know I got tactics that are going to keep me safe, and it's like I'm if the house is burning, I'm not going in it. You stick a guy in there with a gun, I'm your man. I'll be here.
Yeah, there you go.
So, but it's just that different training and different mindset. But it's still exciting, everything, and it's you can't deny it. It's like who doesn't love driving lights and sirens or going to do something hot, and that's the juice is still there for sure.
We got to get that
but
quoted.
It's completely different now at my level. Because now, instead of me leading the way, or I'm the guy doing it or wherever, I got to take 2 steps back. Like as a sergeant, I knew I had to, I was like, as an officer, I'm responsible for me. As a sergeant, I got this guy, this officer, this officer, this officer. Now as a lieutenant, it's like I got the sergeant that's running this team, and I got to make sure they're taken care of. So, it's just learning to take those steps back and do what I got to do. It's and that's the hardest part about moving up in leadership is not being the first one through the door. It's like I want to be that kind of leader, but I also know I'm not doing my job if I'm in the minutia of something and not stepping back and making sure that the whole situation is taken care of. And so
Can we get a definition of minutia? Can we pull that up?
The minutia.
Yeah.
So
that's a good. That's
sorry.
a word of the day there. Sorry,
I'm having problems articulating a little bit too. I got a tumor on my tongue again. That's where my cancer is at my tongue, and so I think I got another tumor that we got to get checked out. And so, it's just another one of those challenges you got to deal with. But
another hill.
Don't seem like the guy to roll over and quit. That's
yeah,
for sure.
We'll get through it.
No time for that.
That's right.
But
yeah, we got to get that quoted though. Quote from
the juice is
Lieutenant
flowing.
McClure. Why do we do it? We do it for the juice.
For the juice.
Do it.
So good.
The
It's
juice
so
is
there.
worth the
It's like,
squeeze there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to like multiple callers on a working fire, and it's your first in district, and if you're in the back seat that day, you're like, it's go time.
Yeah.
I'm
First
gonna-
in,
I'm
flames
gonna-
rolling.
I'm
What
gonna
you know?
rip the nozzle
Woo
on
in the
this.
back.
Yeah.
Woo!
That's what you know.
And selfishly, there's like no better feeling than walking out and seeing the Rick guys standing there, wait,
Yeah.
no, hey, you guys can go do some overhaul in there or something.
The on-scene reports. The on-scene report includes the words "job town." Like it's like that kicks it up a notch, eh?
Yeah, we just because at work we just did transfers. We had a big transfer list. I'm actually going out to Station 8 with Cap Marsh on here, but I'll be on third shift. And Station 1 is where I was at as a fourth man, and it's a very busy station. They truck 1 and engine 1. It was just numbers wise. They usually have they have a lot of calls, but I wanted to stay, and there was only one spot to stay, and out of all the people moving into their third man spot, I think everyone put in for that spot to stay. And I just remember thinking that said a lot about the department, that people aren't wanting to go away from the work.
Yep.
There were probably positions that just numbers wise have less calls, less responsibility, and the people that are in the in the busy work are like, nope, I'm good. I like this. I like being where I'm at.
Yep.
Well, it's a different kind of busy too. Like everyone's got their level of busy,
Yeah,
but it
correct.
depends on what kind of busy you want to be. You know what I mean?
Well, in my career, I found being busy is important. That's how you get ahead, and it's not always looking for the glamorous. Like everybody wants to be the quarterback necessarily, but you got to find that other little job that's being neglected, And so, like, as I'm coming up, one of the things I fell into is like I wasn't all that techie, and I got tapped for some tech stuff just because I knew how to delete my browsing history, and so but I kind of fell into the cell phone stuff, But then I saw the value, and nobody else was doing it, and so I went all in on the cell phone stuff, and that's how I became important. Because at the time I was a crime prevention officer, and we're still kind of attached to investigations. So anytime something big went down, I just showed up to find those little jobs that needed to be done to support them in any way possible. So I started kicking out search warrants. I learned how to do the cell phone stuff, and I started dumping cell phones all the time, and all the dirty stuff you can find on cell phone. And then additionally, it's like I learned how to map cell phone stuff, and just the value that came out of that. It's like if you're involved in something, I map your cell phone, I can either tell you, say you're probably in that area or not, And it's like everyone I've mapped out, all of them have pled out. None of them gone to court because it's just such powerful evidence, especially when you're like start matching up to other evidence. You know, it's like at this time they make a phone call, they're in this area, which would be in the proximity of the crime, and then there's also the surveillance video of the suspect making a phone. You know, like you got a video of somebody making a phone call. It's like, well, his record showed this, and this is where he would have been at, and
That's
everything
awesome.
else. So, but it just I look for the work. It's like sometimes the job that needs to be done isn't the glamorous one. But just stay busy. Find the work that needs to be done that's going to support the team, you know. And it's like, and I'm not self-aggrandizing, you know. It's like I don't look for the recognition and everything. I'm content with, you know, the recognition being that the job is done, you know. And so that's been this. I guess the secret to me getting ahead is just finding work that needs to be done and doing that work.
That's probably leaning more into our advice for younger officers and newer officers too. Do we want to roll into that a little bit? Like,
Well, now that I've taken over a shift, you know, I kind of had to develop my leadership philosophy, or so to speak. So my three leadership principles, or, you know, whatever it is. Number one, do your job. You know, it's like you got to know your purpose and just do the job to the best of your ability. You know, if you don't have the answers, find them, ask for help, but do your job, because the number one thing that you hear people complain about is they're not doing their job. You know, it's like you screw over your partners, you screw over the shift, you screw over the department if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're not delivering service to this community that they deserve. Do your job.
Yep.
That's it. You know, second one there is, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head here, one's prioritize safety. You know, it's like we take a lot of risk, you know, and risk is inherent. So I'm always saying stuff like calculated risks, you know, and everything. But you got to prioritize safety. And I'm going to put myself on the spot now and forget my second one.
we'll get to it.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it's just the stress of the moment. But, you know, the other thing is like, you know, I want officers to do is constantly seek improvement. You know, you can be better, do better, and, you know, constantly seek that improvement. Yeah, I'll have to circle back to that second way, just like I used to
talking
crank
about
them out.
already go so much hand in hand already that it makes sense, and that's a good philosophy to have, because the more you hone in on all that other stuff, it all comes together, and then you can do your job to the best of the ability for the citizens, for each other, and that's always nice, especially in our fields. If you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for the people you're working with then, because everyone's dependent on each other. No matter how good one person is, you're only as good as your weakest link.
Yep.
The saying. So.
And it's like, you know, obviously personalities are always going to mesh, and, you know, we're not going to like certain people, or it is what it is. It's like you don't have to like people, you just have to be professional. And it's like what I love is when an officer needs some help, you know, it doesn't matter who they are. We're going and we're going to help them out and do what we need to do.
Yeah, you know, for firefighters, when you hit that, from my experience, about the 2 to 3 year mark, you kind of start to get a little, you know, complacent from the stuff you learned on your first year, and maybe a few corners get cut and things like that. I can imagine being an officer on your own that it takes a certain high level of integrity to maintain that standard. And, you know, how do you keep an eye on your guys?
Yeah,
when they're out like that.
Right, and that's where we really rely on those first line supervisors too. You know, and now with the body cameras, you know, more of it's documented, so it's easier for us to go back and kind of critique things. You know, but I guess, you know, there's some give and take on that. So I can go back and can look at video cameras, see how they're handling calls, you know, see how they're conducting business, you know, but then it seems like now I'm nitpicking. Now I'm looking for every little thing, and, you know, and so I'm trying to find that right balance of holding people accountable, but not looking like I'm just trying to
and realizing they're humans.
Right.
So, like, they're going to be as good as they can, but then you're like, well, if I don't find anything to pick on, you know, how can they get better? Well, they're getting better probably just from the knowing that it's there. A good job goes a long way too, where they're like, hey, you do that again, here's something maybe you can work on, but just keep doing that and you'll be all right.
And so, well, and like I know I got one officer that's kind of a quiet dude, just keeps to himself, but I know he mentors a lot of younger officers, you know, and the word gets back to, you know, like a couple will come up, you know, every now and again, they'll get comfortable with me, like, yeah, this officer, you know, he you know, he provided a lot of advice, he's always there, you know, and then I'm watching his videos and stuff, and I'm like, all right, he's just kind of quiet and keeps himself and everything. You wouldn't suspect it unless you get in there and really see that. And so, you know, one day I just pull him aside, I'm like, hey, I see what you do. I'm hearing about you. And it's like I recognize in what you're doing and stuff and
That's awesome.
everything. So
Good deal.
That speaks a lot about you as a leader too. So that's good.
So, for those that don't know, your brother, I don't know, is Josh older or younger?
younger.
He's younger. He's been on the fire department. He's a lieutenant on second shift, engine 3.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about your relationship with Josh.
Oh yeah, sure. It's like he's the hero of the family.
He's the firefighter, right?
No, it's a fun dynamic, because we got some similar personalities and humors and everything, But then like we get to our family gatherings and it's like we'll do the little firefighter cop jokes every now and again and everything. But no, I'm very proud of him. It's like I definitely respect what he does, and there's always gonna be that little sibling rivalry, and competition and stuff, But we know each one of us does our thing. The bad thing, I guess, the downside is we're always busy, so we hardly ever see each other or hang out. Seems like unless we're on, a lot of times the most we see each other is when we go on calls. So.
Yeah, I remember seeing that photo when I think it was on light duty and we had a fire.
Yeah.
You guys were standing each other. You had a mask on. It must have been like COVID first
Right.
started.
It was during COVID, and I think it was a garage fire or something. So we both showed up, but we do that all the time, and pop into some call together. And
Again, that's what's cool about Sioux City, just like the family legacies between the police and fire department. And that's kind of nationwide anyway.
Yeah.
It's a family thing. And did you guys have any law enforcement in your family? Fire and
my
stuff?
stepdad was a police officer in Cherokee, Iowa. So that was kind of my introduction to it. So what's funny is like I won't say I was a punk rock kid, but I was like a kind of anti-authority, question the government kind of kid. But then I also saw what my stepdad was doing and everything, and I grew up in the 90s and stuff, so like Rodney King was a thing, and we had all these bands coming out, as after the police and everything. And it's like, all right. And so that kind of affected the way I wanted to do things. Like I wanted to come on and I guess be that kind of officer that wouldn't cause those issues and everything, and just try to do things a little differently, and
do it the right way.
Yeah.
I mean, basically.
Just be professional and treat people like they deserve to be treated. So
awesome.
But and luckily I felt, in all honesty, is completely, because we're talking about, you got to look at an organization, you got to look at that department as an individual department, not paint with that broad brush. And I got lucky that I fell in with Sioux City, because I think they are that kind of department that I'm proud to be a part of. And it's like, obviously we've made mistakes, but we own our mistakes. We learn from them, and we change them. And it kind of circles back to the accountability thing too. Is we are out there on our own doing autonomous stuff all the time, but it's on us and supervisors to go back and double check, make sure people are doing what we would expect them to be doing, and then hold them accountable. And we've had to hold people accountable. There's been officers that have lost their job because they didn't meet the standards.
Standard,
Yep.
The standard, we always got to keep that standard up on both sides of the table here. And
it's definitely a family aspect, but at the same time, there is standards, and we'll do our best to hold those.
Do you have anybody throughout your career that you really consider a mentor, somebody that gave you like a piece of advice that you still hold and then pass on to the next guy?
One of the best pieces of advice I got is I'm kind of a rowdy guy, and it's like I like to joke, and I probably run my mouth way more than I should. But there's this old salty cop, Jim Cassins, and I was working the night shift with him, and we do the pull up alongside each other. But Jim was a smoker, so he kicks his door open, kicks his feet out, and lights up a cigarette, and he's like, Jeremy, you just gotta shut up. I was like, all right. Okay. Fair enough, So, but no, I've had a couple of great mentors along the way. Sergeant Mike Post taught me a lot about what kind of sergeant or what kind of leader I wanted to be. Yeah. And then Lieutenant John Cale did a lot to kind of, admittedly, after my divorce, there were some things that I think was affecting my performance, and I kind of developed a reputation for being silly and not taking things seriously, and and everything. And so I had a bit of a hole to dig myself out of, but Lieutenant Cale kind of helped. At the time he was a sergeant, and he saw my potential, and he mentored and advocated for me a lot. And there's a couple other great leaders along the way that kind of helped shape who I am and get me in the right direction. And then, I also learned from the bad leaders too, as much as I did the good ones. I saw guys that it was a self-promoting kind of deal, and I felt like they were more concerned about their own selves than they were about the people under them.
For sure.
And so so as much as the good as I saw in some leadership, I saw some of that bad, and I'm like, that's the stuff I don't want to do. Yeah. And so I'm trying to carry a lot of those lessons forward and make sure that I change some of how business is done, and try to make the changes that I want to see done to make sure that people feel valued and invested in. It's like our organization is only as good as the people that are in it, and so we got to take care of them and treat them right.
Awesome. I got a question for all three of you. This is my surprise question. Favorite cop movie?
Heat.
Okay.
I just watched that on Netflix.
Nice.
First time I ever seen it, and I loved it. Al Pacino
right
is just phenomenal.
Even though his character's on cocaine, but
completely ridiculous.
But what I love about it is just the drive that both characters had. They're professional. It's a classic cop and robber, obviously, but that drive, that hunt, but also on the other side, another lesson you take away from is you look at Al Pacino's character, in that he's put so much in the job. It's cost him 3 marriages, and it's definitely, this is what it's all about. So, but it's just a great movie, and it's like that shootout scene, so brilliant that there's hardly a military organization that for years didn't reference that scene on Fire and Maneuver and everything. So
yeah, and then the scene where they're in the diner talking about their purpose.
I don't know what to. There's nothing else I want to do.
Well,
I don't know how to.
Else.
Yeah,
I don't know how to do anything.
That's
else.
it.
Yep,
so
classic.
I don't want to.
Right.
I don't want to either.
But just the discipline each character, displays too. Like when Robert De Niro's doing they're burglarizing the joint, and they just hear one little noise, and they're like, walk away, just go, and just. I was like, this is great. So it's a great movie. Michael Mann's a phenomenal director. Another great movie he's done is Last of the Mohicans. I won't go into that too much, but if you haven't checked that out, check it out. So
Fantastic.
Awesome.
You gotta watch that one.
Shit, Phil. What about you guys? Favorite cop movie?
Mine, it's a toss-up between Police Academies 3 and 4.
Not the original. It's like
so 3.
That was
So
the
3
OG
was the first. 3 was the first one that I saw as a kid.
Oh,
I think when it first came out, I don't think my mom would let me watch the first one because the beach scene with the fire and stuff. So so the third one was the first one I saw, and I thought it was pretty awesome. And then Police Academy 4 is fun because it's the Citizens on Patrol. They got their cop program and stuff.
So now we're aging ourselves really bad.
A little
too.
bit, yep. But yeah, that's I don't know. I mean, any of the cop movies. I'm sure you kind of do the same thing. Like, right now, like kind of guilty pleasure. My wife and I, like the one show we do sit down and watch, like DVR, and is Chicago PD. So I'm sure kind of like with you, because even that some of the things when they're doing some forcible entry stuff or whatever, I'm like, that's total bullshit. So I'm sure like you kind of do the same thing with any cop shows and tactics and things. You're like. Like we do with fire shows or fire movies. They were like, come on, this.
It's like my favorite fire movie is Backdraft, but I'm sure that's mostly bullshit.
It still is actually is one of my favorite ones too, though. But
but two parallels in that too is like with the Heat and Backdraft is just here's a couple of guys that the job's all they do, that's all they know, and it consumes their entire life, and they're And you
can take granted if you take out some of the fire stuff that whatever, but if you go to the root of some of the things and some of the issues and some of the stuff, but I still Backdraft, one of my favorite things for the fire service as far as quotes go, is with Donald Sutherland's character and stuff with Ronald. They're saying that the funny thing about firefighters is night or day they're always firefighters. So and then to take that and go, and it's the same with PD, and not so much that you're constantly in that fire mode, but that people will always identify you as a firefighter or as a Sioux City police fighter. That's how you are known, whether you're in uniform or not. If somebody knows you're on the fire department or the police department, you are Sioux City firefighter. You're Sioux City police all the time. So it's something people, we need to be cognizant of that when we are out on our off days and stuff, and still having, and not saying we have to be super strict, but just keep that in the back of your mind that that's how you're identified now because of where you work. So I do take that from Backdraft, some other stuff. But Chip, what do you got for cop movie?
Bad Boys.
Oh yeah. There you go.
I just love that.
Yeah,
I love that, man. The speed and the comedy and
Yeah.
That's why. But Heat, awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Great movie. I'd probably
Well,
toss
what
up
did-
between Heat and Super Troopers. 'Cause
Oh,
gosh.
it's great.
yeah.
I love that movie.
It's hard to even consider. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which-
that didn't even
Yeah.
cross my mind.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Well,
two ends of the
it's
spectrum.
hilarious, but I feel like they kind of nail some of the underlying humor
Oh,
too.
yeah,
you know,
for
it's
sure.
like-
Well, those guys, and actually, if you look at, I've told people, if you want, like, as far as firefighter shows on TV, I say, if you want the most closest like thing, is actually Tacoma FD.
For
I
some of
said,
the in-home,
for
the
in-
in-station
yes,
life.
the in-station
for
life
sure.
stuff, and the conversations is ridiculous. Some of like, dude, those are straight out of like the writers of that show went.
They were at
like,
our kitchen table.
exactly
listening, weren't
like
they?
and hearing some of the things. So I said Tacoma FD. When you look at the
They nailed
interactions
that.
inside, like that's the most realistic fire show.
Or
I think,
interactions
is.
even with like some of the patients they
Yep.
have on
Yeah.
that. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's-
that really does
happens,
happen.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not over dramatic. It's just sometimes just like so ridiculous you can't even make it up. Yeah.
That's awesome. Phil, you got a top 10 list that you threw together.
Oh
You
well,
wanna-
actually, from our producer over there, he wanted to throw in his two parts, and actually, excellent movie. I love it. He's going with The Departed.
The Departed. is-
Ah, what the heck?
Yeah,
How am I missing that?
Phenomenal.
I know.
You know what? I
watched
quote
that
that
on
one a
repeat.
lot.
yeah.
Phenomenal movie.
Probably not quotes we're gonna say here.
Nah, the mushroom quote I
Yeah,
like.
the mushroom quote is a good one. Yep. No, excellent movie.
Fantastic.
No, we do have a top 10. So it's been a little bit since the Christmas episode was our last top 10 list. So, being that we had Lieutenant McClure here, that we came up with a top 10 list for top 10 things cops say to make themselves feel better about not being firefighters. So things you guys say to yourselves to make yourself feel better about not getting to be a firefighter. So, number 10,
Had to go there.
red is a stupid color anyways. You know, red
Blue
fire
is my
trucks.
favorite.
Yep, so
Yeah.
red's a
go.
stupid color. Red's a stupid color. I don't want to be a firefighter anyways. Number 9, a Glock is way cooler than a fire hose or a saw or extrication tools or ropes or jaws of life or any of the other cool stuff that firefighters have.
All I'm saying is you can't stuff all that fire hose down the front of your pants like you can a Glock. So.
There you go.
Yep. Number 8, which actually is funny because Jeremy actually mentioned something. I get nervous or scared around fire anyways, so I don't want to be a firefighter.
It's not my bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I lit that fire for a reason. Now you guys are gonna come put it out?
Yeah.
Number 7 thing in top 10 things cops say to make themselves feel better about not being firefighters. A gun belt is really more fashionable and functional than that satchel/pouch thing they carry their radios in.
Yeah, I was like, those straps
Shout
are
out
pretty. You
Captain
do like to decorate those straps.
Yeah.
I see a lot of flair on
There's
them.
some flair on some of them.
flair.
It's like, thanks for ruining it for everyone.
I'm always impressed with the amount of flair that firefighters, like through the history, seems like that some of the hats, the helmets. I mean, I was just like,
Yeah.
that is grandiose.
Yeah, now back to the traditional helmets and stuff and everything. It does. It's functional, but it also looks really cool. We got the nice Eagle on it. The mold,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's it's cool. So
Nick Roth just wrote an article about Rich Anderson retiring.
Yes.
He retires this summer, and he
Yep.
was the first one to have the radio strap. And then it had all the names, and people kind of made fun of it. In the article, I wrote about how people kind of made fun of Rich for it at first, but now
It's like
80% of our department wears them,
like
Sure.
and
everyone's
they
using
love
it
them.
because it's
so-
functional again.
Yep.
And it's like it makes sense.
yeah, and
really-
it looks cool. So number 6, I get full control of the aux port and get the radio dial
That's
myself. Like when you're out by yourself, you get full control of all of it. So
100%.
it's way better than driving around a
I know
fire
my
engine, right?
lieutenant has to deal with my singing in the rig
Yep.
over the headsets, and would
Yep, I
probably
get to
much
be in
rather
by
prefer a
control of the aux port
yeah,
myself.
aux
So
port.
Do you have a danger music song?
oh yeah,
If you
do
were
you
in,
have
like, a-
something like
Well-
the go-to, like we're going to Jobtown? What's going in the cassette tape?
I don't.
Cassette-
I've been
cassette
been playing around with entrance songs for when we come to the roll call. You know, like.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
nice.
it depends on my mood, you know. It's like I've been on a Slipknot kick, but I also been listening to Run the Jewels, and
Oh,
I just
hey,
been bouncing back and forth, you know. So
yeah, culture I see. That's fantastic.
right.
It's a shame you have to listen to the radio.
When,
'cause
I used to love.
I'd love to crank.
I used to
You're
love.
sick coming to
And I can't. It's like my ADHD kicks in. I'm like I can't listen to 10 things at once. So it's like so I got to turn the radio off. But I used to love driving the prisoner transport van or the paddy wagon, if you will.
Yes, Patty.
And one day we're going to cover an officer, you know, and something's getting squirrely. And I was training somebody at the time, and so we're cruising down the road. You know, we're cruising down West 7th, kind of hauling. And I grabbed the PA and I start playing the A-Team thing, over it, so it blocks away. All they hear is dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun.
Nice.
Oh,
That's
great call.
fantastic.
All right, number 5 in the top 10 things cops say to make themselves feel better. They don't even get their own cars to drive around in all day by themselves. You know, you guys get your
True.
own cars, but you get to be by yourself. You know, we get to just big fire engines, so you know, because driving around by yourself is way cooler, apparently. Number 4, I don't really like watching TV in a comfy recliner that much. Anyways, it hurts my back.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Recliners aren't that great at work.
No. What was that? Number 4. Number 3, eating cold meals from home in a car is way better than sitting in a nice kitchen after grilling a hot meal. I'm not that good of a cook anyways,
Right?
right? No.
Whatever.
Yeah.
On these days, you can set stuff on the dash and it warms
Yeah.
up.
It
just
warms up
fine.
really good.
Just ready to
Yeah.
go.
Crack an
Right
egg
on
on
the
the
hood.
radiator.
Yep. Okay. So number 2 in top 10 things cops say to make themselves feel better. Sleep is overrated.
Yeah. No, it's
so
like
overrated.
that, and that's why I don't want to go back to night shift because nobody cares you're on night shift. They're like, hey, we need you here at 10 in the morning. I work
You know, when
nights.
they
I
drive
don't
by
care.
the firehouse and the lights are all out and stuff.
like-
Sleep is overrated.
So then we're like,
Who cares?
I need fire here for an antifreeze spill.
Yeah.
at 4 in the morning.
Yeah,
Oh,
4 in the
yeah.
morning, you get there, it's like,
Hey guys,
That's from somebody's AC. It's just
I missed you guys.
yeah. And the number one thing, we should do the top 10 things.
It's got a soundboard.
Yep.
There it is.
My mom says I'm just as handsome and funny and strong and smart and cool as those fire guys.
Yep.
As my brother.
Yeah.
You're just special in a different way.
Yeah.
But then, like we were talking downstairs too, and just like I said, I cope with some. It was like, yeah, not everyone likes the cops. That's fine, you know, and they're always so happy to tell me that, and I'm like, that's fine. If I cared if you like me, I would have been a firefighter. So
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Nice.
Care too much.
Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. Good work on that, Phil.
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah.
for throwing that
Thanks for
together.
putting that
Top
together.
10
yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty accurate. Anything else we want to add? You guys got anything?
Interesting talks.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
We work hand in hand with you guys all the time.
Mhm.
And it's just nice hearing it straight from you especially because you're a good talker, but just explaining the
Well,
ins and outs of
I think
what
it's
you
good.
do.
You know, anytime we could build the relationships. You know, we talk about people that had an impact on you and stuff. And I had a captain that I worked for with a number of years and stuff. And that was his thing was relationship building, really just ground it into your head. So I think anytime we have that opportunity to do that, you know, and we work with you guys all the time, and you know, and be able to build some relationships, even you know, outside of the job or outside of work. But you know, it always helps when we get on scene then to know, you know, where you guys kind of understand how we operate a little bit, so you can stay out of our way, like not parking a car in front of a burning house, and then, you know, we can, you know, if we get called to something that gets, you know, sounds like it's be dangerous, you know, we're pretty good about staging, letting you guys do your
job,
thing first and stuff before, you know, we roll in and do anything. We kind of, you know, anytime we can do that, it just helps everything on the response aspect of stuff, you know, when we get
And
there, so.
it goes back to that professionalism and the level of service. Ultimately, we're here to deliver service to the people we serve, and then when we can show up and work cohesively, you know, that just makes our response better. You know, like those accident scenes. When we get there, we can make it safer for you guys to get in there to do what you need to do, and it just you know. The partnership's important, and it's like I know we like to riff on each other quite a bit and everything, but I definitely think there's that mutual respect in our community too, because you know you see every now and again you see reports of cops and firefighters getting in fights on the side of the road, and I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
Same team, man.
right,
Yeah, it just seems like that seems like such a far out thing. Cause I'm like, man, that's not
Never
a thing
seen
here
it,
at all. Yeah.
I know the FTNY NYPD hockey game.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
guys beat the shit out of each other.
yeah,
during
See,
that thing.
we
It
haven't
get-
done
it
that.
gets
We
real.
haven't done that for a number of years. We need to bring that
We
back.
do.
Right?
That'd be fun. I wanna
That's
try and do
been
it
it's
before.
been how many years has that been?
3
Like
or
since
4.
oh, it's been longer now.
yeah,
I
it's
bet you.
like
It's a
2018. I
lot.
want to say 2017.
probably
It's been a
2017.
long time
But
since
you
we
know
had
what?
that
Actually,
game.
I think Sheriff Sheehan was still on the PD when
Yeah,
I got
All right.
organized. So
Wow.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
We'll have
so
to do something again.
yeah,
I want to do
we-
it before like a Musketeer game because they always
Oh.
do first responder night. We
Yep.
do a lot. Like just go.
that would be awesome.
we
To
go
just
play
put
it,
like
play
you know,
5 minutes or
play
That'd
a
be
period.
cool.
Yeah, we play 30 minutes before, you know, an
Yeah.
hour before their warm ups and do fill the boot.
Yeah, in place.
Something.
I'd
You're
love
You're
to
gonna have
get
to
back
mic a
on
few
it.
of you out though, so we can hear you chirping.
That would, yeah.
Oh, well, I think we could get maybe a crew here to broadcast it live or something.
That would be cool.
You know,
But it'd just be nothing but like, just wheel snipe Sally.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Silly.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Anything you want to add before we cut you loose?
No, and I know what'll happen is I'll remember that second leadership principle I had since I walk out of here. I'm just on the spot now. It's like, dang it. But no, it's a great opportunity, and I'm very proud to work in this community. It's like we're not a huge city or anything, but we get our fair share of fun. But I think people are very lucky that they got the organizations that they do serving, and I hope we continue living up to their expectations and just help each other out as much as we can. So
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us today. I don't individually, I don't know you super well, and then just with the police department, don't know a ton about it. But after doing this today, it was a treat. Very interesting to listen to. I think our listeners will agree. And thanks for coming on today. Really appreciate it. And good luck with everything. With your cancer you talked about earlier.
If you need anything from us,
it's all
if
good in
there's
the hood.
anything we can all
Seemed
do.
like a tough SOB.
it's just
know.
one more hill.
That's right. One more hill.
Too stubborn to roll over. It's
Yep. But all right.
good deal. Thank you. We'll see you guys. Oh yeah, Ryan, you want to drop the tones for us?
Drop 'em, baby.
Nick, if you thought that 100-yard pass was good, watch this.
Forget the curveball, Nicky. Give him the heater.
I got nothing for this guy. He just freaking hits everything we throw at him.
I got something on my sleeve.
He's just got dingers in his veins. We'll give it a shot.
I got
Let's do
this.
it.
Hey, Preston, you swing like a girl.